Hemochromatosis. I see approximately 5 cases a year of this very rare but dangerous genetic disorder. In this video, I'm going to show you how to diagnose it, what to look for, signs and symptoms, and how to manage this dangerous high iron genetic disorder. And we're going to get started right now. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Glenn Harrison and welcome to this week's segment of Why. This is where we take just a few minutes to answer some of the most common health-related questions and concerns that I see in my office every day. So I've made a lot of videos on different iron disorders in the past, but this is all about hemochromatosis. So if you're watching this video, you either have been diagnosed with hemochromatosis or you know somebody who has been, and this is a very stealthy form of cause of high iron. So hemochromatosis, generally speaking, is a genetic disorder where people who have the disorder absorb extremely high levels of iron from their diet, higher than someone who doesn't have this genetic disorder. And as a result, if iron levels get too high, the liver failure is almost inevitable, as well as heart failure, depending on the individual. So it actually can be deadly. So some symptoms, or some symptoms that can be associated with high iron, and hemochromatosis is just one of the causes, but high iron, and I've seen these in my clinic. Joint pain, I've seen that. Abdominal pain, maybe only once in my career, I've seen that associated with high iron. Fatigue, that's quite a common thing. And then, of course, lab markers showing liver injury and then ultimately liver failure, as well as some cardiovascular conditions. So those are some of the symptoms, but those symptoms don't, if you have those symptoms, it doesn't mean, oh wow, I have high iron and there's a problem. No, those are just some things to pay attention to. And then there's the diagnostics, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. That's a big part of what I do in my clinic and how I found hemochromatosis. But there's 4 major iron tests. There's 5, but 4 major ones that you want to look for, that you want to get done, get your provider to do them. Total iron binding capacity, total iron saturation, and ferritin. And ferritin, in my experience, ferritin is the one that gives us it gives us confidence that there's high iron. The other markers can fluctuate depending on what's going on in the body, but ferritin is the best indicator of iron in the body. So here is the challenge though. You can have high ferritin, but that doesn't mean that you have hemochromatosis, right? The only way is genetically doing a genetic test. But if you have a high iron in the body, that can mean one of 2 things. That can mean you have your high ferritin. That can mean one of 2 things. You can have truly high iron, but ferritin can lie to us on a lab panel, and it can artificially elevate with acute inflammation. So if I see somebody that comes into my office, they have screaming high ferritin, we are concerned, of course. But if they have a lot of evidence to show that they're acutely inflamed, there's a significant acute inflammatory response, we're going to work on that, and we should be able to see that ferritin number come down in 2 weeks, no later than 4 weeks. Now, if ferritin is not coming down, then we go in and get the genetic test and then follow the medical strategy. And the medical strategy is bloodletting, right? Going in for donations or draws to try to get that iron down. So those are signs and symptoms. That's how we diagnose it. Those are the tests, and even that's a conventional way of managing it. But if you've been diagnosed with hemochromatosis and you're going in for blood draws all the time, that can be fine. But what can happen if you don't control and take advantage of controlling your own iron with lifestyle strategies, you end up having to go in for many more draws than what is necessary. So your lifestyle can drastically work on your behalf to keep your iron levels down. So here are some strategies, and this is what I get all of my hemochromatosis patients to do, and they're having like one blood donation procedure every year, every 2 years, when before they were going every month. So this is very powerful, because if you're donating all the time or you're giving blood all the time, you can get into a state of anemia. You don't only get rid of the iron, you actually get rid of other nutrients in your body. So here's a few things. So to manage, iron, of course, make sure you're doing your blood test to check in your ferritin and the other markers. Stay away. The major dietary restriction is staying away from heme iron. This is blood iron. Heme means blood, and that'd be animal products. So try to reduce your red meats and all of that, because that's very bioavailable iron. But you can still use non-heme iron sources. And this is more plant-based nutrients that have higher iron in there. So I don't usually worry about those. I worry about the heme iron. Another thing you can do is stay away from cast iron frying pans. It seems simple, but it actually is pretty powerful. The cast iron gets into the food and it can actually elevate your levels. So you want to do what you can naturally from a lifestyle. Focus on an autoimmune diet. Or I should say autoimmune, an anti-inflammatory diet. The more inflammation you have, the more your body's going to hold on to that iron. So, I've done videos on anti-inflammatory diet. And then supplementation. There's three major supplements that I like when people have to use to keep their inflammation down. And one is turmeric. Turmeric's a great one. Resveratrol and glutathione, and that's a specific form of glutathione that is S-acetylglutathione. So turmeric, resveratrol, and acetylglutathione. So those are supplements that can keep that inflammation down, hopefully keep your iron down. And then, of course, some supplements to avoid. Now, if you have hemochromatosis and high iron, maybe you know this already, maybe you don't, but stay away from vitamin C at all costs. Vitamin C increases your body's ability to absorb iron. And then also, which is a lot of people aren't commonly aware of this, is vitamin C is just one avoidance, but calcium. Usually stay away from calcium supplementation because that also increases your body's to absorb ferritin, or I should say iron. Now there's a little bit of an interesting thing. Iron plays into our joints if it's too high, our energy, all of these things, but iron also affects the brain. I've had a case in my career where the individual was diagnosed with bipolar disorder for 30 years. And then it wasn't until we got their iron levels down, their bipolar symptoms disappeared. I reached out to a neurologist colleague who's a researcher, and he dug through the research and said, wow, there is a connection. High iron for long periods of time can create enough brain dysfunction to show up in bipolar disorder. So, maybe it's not that common, but I was able to see it in my clinic. So don't underestimate the effects of crazy high iron, and don't underestimate the effects of too low of iron. I have videos on both, and they'll be in the description and following this video. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. If you have hemochromatosis, there is help. There's ways you can manage it on your own to keep your organ systems healthy. You don't have to worry about it as long as you do what you need to do. So with that being said, I look forward to talking to you next day where we're going to answer the why to another health-related question. Have a great day.